have a lot of new things to share with you today. So, D.R.I.V.E is in. It's just as fast and as fun as Blizzard said it would be. It's actually way faster than most of us expected. It's not exactly what we thought it would be, and to some people it is too much, but that at least means it's interesting. Then, Warband Campsights are actually in. They add a whole new type of collectible to the game. There's a whole impressive UI built around all of it, and of course this is all because patch 11.1 is on the PTR, and we have played a hell of a lot of it. We've dug around, and good news actually, this patch does have quite a lot of neat things in it. Well, the most obvious thing to talk about is D.R.I.V.E. Basically, D.R.I.V.E is just a whole new way of getting around on the ground. Obviously, dragon riding completely ended up being a game changer for WoW, and in some ways, D.R.I.V.E blows it out of the water. I mean, in terms of speed, it absolutely does. These things go screaming fast. And basically, once you're in Undermine, you'll unlock a new mount that's not really a mount. It's actually a vehicle, though you do summon it in like it's a mount. The difference is it gives you a vehicle UI, and that vehicle UI has got a boost button, because yes, we've got boosts, and basically this is proper kart racing. It's kind of crazy, and Blizzard really have nailed all the specifics, the sorts of things that honestly I never really expected would work well in World of Warcraft. So you've got the physics of acceleration, of turn speed, and drifting. They've tuned all of that, built the systems, and it feels really good. And that means that just drifting around Undermine, just on the main roads, actually feels really damn fun. But of course, like the best of, say, playing Mario Kart, you can learn the map. You can have fun little shortcuts and ways to cheese things, which I really like. Just stuff like boosting off ledges, getting incredible airtime. That does just make traveling around obscenely quick. And some of that's because Undermine is really not a massive zone. Like, seriously, it's not compared to something like, say, Zaralek Cavern. The difference is we do it in the ground, and it is way, way more dense than we would usually expect, which of course makes sense because it's supposed to be a city. So right now, you've only got one car. It's called the G99, but there's already some customization options that you get immediately. So you can pick from 5 different colors, 3 different engines, 3 tire types, and then 3 boost types, and you can even pick a companion, so someone's riding shotgun with you, but that actually doesn't work in the PTR yet. Now, your engines and wheels and all of that are kind of just like customization in Mario Kart. So the engines change your acceleration and your top speed. Of course, you can go for the middle ground. You can increase your acceleration at the cost of top speed, or just drop acceleration to have a complete top speed build, which will be really good for timing a race if you can pretty much play perfectly and never lose the speed that you accrue. Kind of neat. Then there's the tires that do what you expect. They just change how grippy your wheels feel whenever you're drifting about the place. And the boost options basically change how much of your boost meter is used at once. So basically, you can have a very large boost, but one that will blast through your whole boost meter. And to be honest, the full blast boost meter really, really does feel amazing. That being said, right? There are some issues. There are camera problems, and there are stutters at high speed. And some of that's because you're actually just going so goddamn fast that depending on your computer, World of Warcraft is sitting there screaming while it's trying to load the assets in. Just like all the little doodads and things you can see around the place. And of course, sometimes ground collision can be pretty jarring because this still is World of Warcraft. If you crash into a wall, then, well, it's, just like you're pressing the W key into a wall, which doesn't exactly fit how driving, I think, should feel. Anyway, this is very much a development feature. I think it's really promising right now, and there'll be a full deep dive video from us next week in that. And that's because there is so much more to cover today, like our sponsor. You're an absolute favorite of mine and big supporter of the channel, Boot.dev. So here's the deal with them, right? They'll teach you back-end development using the core technologies of Python and Go. But more importantly, they're a cut above the rest because they're designed by people like you and me for people like you and me. That's because the founders are actually big gamers as well. And what's cool is it's a community RPG. Just look at this. This is their real-time leaderboard. It is so cool just seeing people do their lessons. They have a super active Discord, and on the platform, they've got quests, XP, community boss battles, all of that supporting an extremely thorough, detailed, and career-focused learning pathway that, yes, will take you from the basics like Python, learning the likes of Lua, right through to full back-end development. And you've got fun side quests along the way, like remaking asteroids in Pygame, and vital adjacent skills like mastering Git. So back-end development is also an awesome, well-paid career. You have an average of 100K compensation, great contracts, flexible working, and these are, of course, proper foundational programming skills. Boot just do it better than anybody else, and you can check them out today at boot.dev/Bellular. There, you'll get 25% off your first purchase. I go annual for the biggest saving, and if it's not for you, they have a 30-day, no questions asked refund period, and you can browse their materials and check out their site, all that stuff for free. Let's talk about Warband Campsights. So usually Blizzard releases a feature in a kind of half-baked form, like with the UI updates that just slowly happened over time. But to be honest with you, this one does actually look like the full job. So as soon as you hit your character list, you're going to notice a few new buttons there. One of them will list your own campsites, and those are the different ones that you can swap between. Then there's a randomize from favorites option and an apply to all camps button. And that's a button that you're now going to need because there's actually a new button that adds new camps. So basically think of these camps like folders that can store 4 characters at a time. So if you've got, say, a few Horde characters, a few Alliance characters, or maybe if you play in a few different servers, well, you could group all of those characters together in their own campsite, and then you can basically rename those groups of characters. You can give them their own campsite and all that stuff, which honestly is kind of cool. I mean, come on, we're gamers. Give us something to organize and we'll go and organize it. Sadly, right now, you can't reorder them, and there are a few minor bugs that we found, but I've got to imagine those will be fixed by the time it hits live. In-game, then, you can actually see the Blizzard are treating this seriously, not just as a gimmick thing. And that's because the collections window has actually got a whole new tab for these, so these really are like a new type of ongoing collectible in World of Warcraft. I've got to assume that means that as time goes on, we'll get pages and pages and pages of those things. So it's its own tab of the collectible menu. It's got a whole bunch of different things, like it gives you a grayed out preview. It tells you the source of things. Though right now in the PTR, there's only 3 that come up, and those are from Delver's Journey in Season 2, the All That Kaz achievement, which is to max out all of your Kaz Algar renowns, amongst a few other things. And then there's one for the Racing to Revolution achievement, which is basically for finishing most of Undermine. All pretty cool stuff, but as it turns out, that's not the end of the UI improvements. There's a chance some of you will never look at this, but you really should because it's cool. What Blizzard have done is they finally added performance tracking for add-ons. So there's a big one here in the menu, and you can also see it over here. And basically this means that if you start to get, say, frame rate dips in a dungeon or a raid, you can take a quick look at this and you can see if it's an add-on problem and even which specific add-on is giving you the troubles. Now, it's not completely comprehensive. Like, there are definitely more nerdy details that would be great to see, but basically this will let you know if you need to get rid of any outliers that are causing problems. If you look at the add-on menu version, it's actually even better. That's been upgraded to show the dependencies and to show average CPU usage on mouse over, as well as a search, which is pretty good if you've got a humongous list of add-ons. But that's far from it from the upgrades, because we've now got this on our map. It's a full-on event tracker, and the way they've done this is they've added new tabs to the side of your map. So one of those tabs is just the map legend, which is a thing that they added with this expansion, but the new thing is a full timeline for all of the events that are happening in Kaz Algar. This is one of those things where, for the more experienced players, we kind of didn't really need that, and I know loads of people would get weak ores that handle this sort of thing, but for it to just be there in World of Warcraft's actual UI and not be a weak ore that somebody has slung over to the side of their screen that they'll just forget and will sit there cluttering the place up forever, this is great. The sort of thing that World of Warcraft's default base UI absolutely should be doing, so that people don't feel like they've got to go and look at, Wowhead for absolutely everything. The next change to cover, honestly, is absolutely goddamn massive. Swirlies. Swirlies have been the bane in everybody's life forever, and now they're actually slightly better. So take a look at this. This is the new swirly graphic, just any of those swirlies that bosses randomly throw at you. If you're a Blizzard designer and you just feel like you want to make your players feel a little bit more stressed, you just throw in a bunch of swirlies. That can be really annoying, and much of the reason is because the old swirly graphic wasn't extremely clear in where it actually ended. If you take a look at this, well, yes, there is a crystal clear outline, and that does mean they're a little bit less immersive, but I think that is a tiny sacrifice for actually having good readability into the fight that you're doing. I think this is actually kind of huge, and this is going to be, of course, the new normal going forward, which is just one of those things where we'll get used to it, and then we'll kind of wonder, man, how did we last without these for so long? Then we've got a whole bunch of class changes, and I'll be doing all of these completely in depth. There's already a video on Marksmanship Hunter, but basically the good news is, on MM, actually playing it, it feels pretty damn good. I mean, when you're fully stacking up your aim shots and you're just lining up the new precise shots mechanic and doing all of that stuff well and getting into flow, man, it hits hard, the flow feels way better, and Blizzard's, basically their bet was to refocus on balancing aim shot and rapid fire, and that just feels like it has fundamentally cleaned up the spec way better. And it's also really cool having the new Eagle thing, at least from my perspective. I mean, having a stun that's ignoring line of sight, having access to Bloodlust without having to fiddle around with summoning and dismissing a pet. Like, that is a humongous improvement. And actually, the Eagle's Bloodlust visual is really cool, like the visual and the sound. Of course, look, it's controversial for a lot of people moving away from pets on MM, and I think it would be really cool if the Eagle had some, like, customization stuff going on, but basically, the spec changes to MM feel really good. But the good news is that if you play BM or SV, well, the pack leader revamp is there for you, and at least so far, it does seem really cool. Just the visuals of summoning in the bear, the wyvern, and the boar are just really cool. And on the topic of new visuals, shamans, you've got a new lightning bolt, and it does look cool and new and shiny, but and it is like an upgrade in quality, like fidelity wise, but it is very different. This is a lightning bolt that is basically a flying projectile rather than a lightning bolt, as in a bolt of lightning that is moving pretty much instantaneously. And it's also kind of the wrong color. So Blizzard, maybe just, you know, a few little tweaks there. I like what you're going for, but I think it needs to be reined in a little. Now, there are some other class changes as well. Demon Hunters, actually good news. You're getting a bit of a look. Enhancement Shamans, but also Druids and many healers. So it'll be really fun to just do those in depth over the coming weeks. That being said, talked about a lot of things, but not necessarily the core bit of this new patch, which is the City of Undermine. Okay, time for the world content of this patch. So first, they've added a chunk to the Ringing Deeps, which is where you start the quest, but eventually you will make your way to Undermine, which is the big goblin capital city. And when we get there, we very much find out that it's not in good shape. It's essentially a massive underground shanty town. It's laid out in a circle, and it is built perfectly for driving around. I mean, it's a big circle. If you like drifting, it's a good place to go drifting. Now, it does feel small, but it's also a city, so it is incredibly dense, to the point where I don't think this is them, like, skimping out on a patch. Like, seriously, it is way more dense, so that is a good thing. Now, if you are worried about this being too goblin-y, or perhaps not goblin-y enough, I think Blizzard have actually managed to strike a balance here. The worry was always that this would just feel like a big joke, because goblins have kind of been that in the past. Well, the questline is mostly serious. It deals with goblin society, like, pretty well. Gallywicks, there's a few surprises, but then the zone itself has still got the silly charm, but in a way where it doesn't feel like completely cheap and stupid. So you've got explosions, trash, stupid goblins trying to hustle their way to getting some quick gold. Basically, everything that you would want to see from goblins. It doesn't seem that they've went too far in that regard, and they've actually tried to keep the quest content decently self-serious. Now, the world gameplay is mostly the usual, but they've tried to make that just differentiated by dialing up the goblinness. So we've got world quests that are ground races instead of skywriting races, and then we've got shipping and handling, which are basically Grand Theft Auto-like missions. Yeah, we got that in WoW. So you basically drive to a location, solve a problem, then go to the next one. Then there's a new thing called the chat list. This is basically just a quick way for you to go around and get some Valor Stones by ticking things off a list. And then there's scrap jobs, which basically are, you know, what they sound like. Rambling around the local scrapyard trying to find some copper and not getting caught. All these activities have their own weeklies attached for reputation, and that, combined with decent world quests, bonus objectives, and the usual rares and treasures, because they're always there, do make this not revolutionary, but actually pretty decent. It's one of those things where some of the framing of the quests and just the locomotion with Drive actually does make it feel a bit more fresh as a gameplay experience. There's also 2 new special assignments here as well, and a whole ton of side quests that we have just not had a chance to run through in the PTR yet. So basically, a lot of content. And speaking of content, we gotta talk about delves, especially because gilded crests will be coming from delves this season, and that means it's actually time to take delve content properly seriously. So, in-game, Bran tells us that a tier 11 bountiful delve will drop gilded crests 3 times a week. Now, there's 2 new delves. We've got Side Street Sluice and Excavation Site 9, and they're, I would say, more of the same gameplay-wise. I don't mean that in a bad way, it's just delves are delves. These are more delves, and basically it's good to have new ones and more variety in the pool, but it's not like these play in some crazy, fundamentally different way. One thing they do quite well, though, is diversity. So one of them is like proper goblin sewers and sneaking about. The other one is full-on Black Blood versus Titan ruins that really, really does look amazing. But gameplay-wise, and especially those higher levels, Bran tanking could truly be a game changer for people who want to progress in their delves now, and that's just because when Bran's there, it really does take a ton of stress away when you're healing or DPSing. I suppose it's almost like having a hunter pet doing the tanking for you. Basically, it just means that you get to focus on the damage and the mechanics instead of having to self-heal through lots of incoming white damage. Taking a look at Bran, well, he's pretty cool with his big new shield. Those two delves aren't the only content additions though, so most of the other delves are going to be getting another variant, and we've got another NPC like Zekfir, but basically he's not on the PTR yet, and we don't even know who he is going to be, so that could be kind of cool. Anyway, this is the short version of the PTR stuff. We've basically been going ham into PTR over the last few days, but obviously there's so much more to dig into, so look forward to more of that in the coming days. But if you want a deeper look into the marksmanship hunter changes, well, you can check out this video next.